people look out on the city and just see lights. I see lives, Agent, burning with hope for a better future. But what happens when evil comes out of the shadows? We do what we always do. We go to work.
Okay, really fascinating presentation we've just watched. Talking about the destructive capabilities, the destructive elements of Crackdown 3. I'm joined by Dave to sort of elaborate a little bit more. Can you sort of just do, firstly, broad terms, what we saw in the presentation there and what you guys are showing at Gamescom?
So what you saw there was, for the first time we had the opportunity to do Crackdown 3 multiplayer, and for us it was like, what does it mean to be a Crackdown player in a big online multiplayer game? And what you saw there was our kind of vision of, well, we really want to make the world really physical, because Crackdown was a physical game, and how far could we push that? So what you saw there was us pushing it to the point where we could make the whole world fully destructible.
The way you presented that in the presentation was, and the way you're juggling is it's across multiple cloud servers, basically. So that's crunching a lot of the power rather than it being done on your specific Xbox One.
Yes, So basically, an Xbox One, you know, is powerful and it can do physics. Obviously, a lot of games have great physics. But if you want to kind of really push physics to a new level, because one of our mottos is physics is the new graphics, is, you know, we said, oh, okay, we need a lot more computational power here. And so, you know, being a Microsoft game, we said, you know, can we use Microsoft Cloud to try and supplement the compute power in your Xbox One? And what you saw there was the result of being able to use a lot of cloud power to supplement the game.
What sort of testing have you guys done prior to this? I mean, was it testing like first with the intention of bringing it into Crackdown, or was it Crackdown, how can we work? I mean, chicken egg scenario.
Yeah, I mean, going back, it was actually kind of both at once. I'd kind of, you know, designed the first Crackdown game, and then taking a break, you know, and then when Xbox One came out, I was saying to Microsoft, you know, you guys have cloud, it would be great if we could really use cloud, because I love open world physical games. And they said, well, that really might fit if we're going to bring Crackdown, you know, back and do a Crackdown 3. And so it kind of came about from that. It's like, yeah, let's do a great campaign game, which you can play offline, as every Crackdown player, I believe, wants. Great co-op game, but let's really innovate in the multiplayer space and do an amazing Crackdown multiplayer game for the first time.
Now, you exampled there during the presentation with the multicolored buildings, and each representing an individual server. Is the intention behind that, rather than doing, say, a pocket of the city under one server by breadcrumbing it frees up some of the space, doesn't put as much stress on each individual server?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very dynamic system. So basically, like I said, rather than just having a server for the game, we said actually we want so much compute power, we had to break the world up and allocate compute power to each part of the world. And that's dynamic. So like if you've got a very tall skyscraper there that's really complex, that needs a lot more compute power. If you want to make it fully destructible, then maybe a block next to it that has some smaller buildings. So it's a very dynamic system and it's expandable. So we can keep pushing the size limit and just keep bolting on compute power as the city expands.
So it's not like a sort of smoke and mirrors thing where you will have, say, let's just say, for example, a half-a-mile radius around the players. Everything beyond that is background art?
No, absolutely. So we said it has to be 100% destructible. It has to be, Crackdown was all about everywhere I see I can go. Infinite kind of, right to the edge of the map, and if there's a car there, I can take it, drive all the way across, and leave it there and drive all the way across, and it's still there. So that's a big part of Crackdown, and we said players will expect the same thing in this. I can look as far as I can see, and everything I can see I can get to, and if I want to, I could be a mile away and still blow that building up.
So is there a base server that the 4 players will load onto, and then the other servers layer on top of that, almost like you have a sketch almost of what to go into? Yeah,
so we're probably kind of revealing a bit too much there, and how far we want to go into. But it is, it is kind of a dynamic system. So it's a very different way of thinking about how games are designed, especially in the multiplayer sense. So to be honest, what we're doing here is try to the first layer of that, and then further on we're talking about other systems we're developing.
Well, one of the things you were almost testing there was basically how many servers you can get up and running. You said you almost took 13 there. How far have you actually pushed that? How far have you got before things have went?
It's fully dynamic. I mean, basically, technically, there is no limit. So it's a fully dynamic system. You know, we will design. There is obviously a cost issue. You know, so for us as game designers, there always is. So for us, it's about how many do we need to provide the experience we want, and that's really what we're focusing on. But the great thing is, we know we have a system that can dynamically handle whatever we want to do creatively.
Sort of like, I guess, well, one of the things you guys have to consider is this is within, at the moment, a controlled space, but when you transport that to a public space with hundreds, thousands, millions of players, I mean, what's the thought there?
Yeah, so absolutely, we fully realize, you know, we're kind of, you know, optimizing for that. You know, we realize people have a certain, you know, download speed, and that we have to be within those kind of boundaries. So we fully understand all of that, and we're definitely, you know, working to that. And obviously, you know, Microsoft Cloud is probably one of the biggest clouds out there, so they have the infrastructure to be able to do, one of the few companies that have the infrastructure to be able to do something like this.
So I want to talk about little, just small things you talked about during the demo. So, as you said, you can punch a hole through walls. With the buildings themselves, I mean, the interiors, are they more simplified in that I can punch my way through and use, is it just a single room, or is there stairwells? I mean, how do you look to that, to using the interior buildings, not just the outside?
Basically, whatever we want, we will do whatever the experience demands. So first of all, absolutely, you know, you have to be able to go completely through a building, because otherwise we're not 100% destructible. So we know that. The level of detail we go into each individual building is really up to us as designers about, you know, what is that and what do we really need to build the game we want to build. You know, how important is that to us?
And you also exampled with a tower that you took down for the end of the demo, by potentially, if there was a crime boss at the top of it, you could climb up the side, or you can chip away and knock the entire building down. Now, it looks absolutely impressive, but what I'm curious about is how do you maintain a challenge, and how to push players into experimenting beyond just the destructive capabilities, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, part of open world game design, right, and free-form play is that you actually want players to do that. So at the end of the day, we'll design an experience, and I think I want them to be able to do it the way they want to do. You know, so to me, both those scenarios, as long as we as game designers make sure that, you know, kind of they're both compatible in effort and reward, they should be absolutely open to players to be able to do that any way they want. So we're not going to force players to do anything, you know, because that's just taken away from our mantra of open world, free-form play, any way they want to do it.
And they flashed up at the end of the presentation about multiplayer next year, so I'm assuming, is that just like a sort of testing ground for players to try it out, rather than it's the campaign first, then rolling this later?
We aren't going any deeper than just that just now, so that's kind of the message we have just now is, you know, next year is when you'll be able to sample it for the first time.
Thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
My pleasure.
Listen, obviously all the news on Crackdown 3, keep checking with Gamereactor.